Welcome back. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you may be watching this. To another, mini unpacked episode. Today I'm looking at, or today the idea that we're looking at is why clarity is more dangerous than confusion. You know, Clarity is something that everybody wants, but want to stay in a confused state. Being confused keeps you safe, as you might say. You know, and that could be deemed you don't want clarity because you feel unsafe. So you'll rather be confused. But also you have to remain, wary of false clarity, and not challenging authority during this time. But being in this confused state, it allows you for a safety net, allows cover, allows, limited growth, as you could say. When you're confused, you could say, oh, I don't have no time. I don't have time to work on this project. I don't have time to go to the gym. I don't have time to cook this meal. I'm not ready to post this content. No, I don't think I'm ready to go to the gym yet. I'm lacking, something, equipment. Whatever the case may be, this is keeping you safe and keeping your body in what you know. Because when you're confused or you're trying to do a new thing and all these statements that I just read, you're sitting there in what you know. You're not going to the gym because it's a new environment. You're not cooking this meal because you never cooked this meal before, so you're nervous that you might mess it up. It's a lot of things that you're keeping you safe from. So, excuse me, that you have to be worried about. It's allowing for delay, and if you delay for too long, it could be harmful. So you have to be very careful of this. You have to really understand that it's wanting to be ready. Wanting to change, wanting to do the things that you want to do, because it's going to take time. Obviously some things are hard to make. These hard decisions are hard to make of, I have to dedicate myself to going to the gym, but that's where discipline is built. And when you do this and you go to the gym during this time every day, you're killing other bad habits. You're releasing things that could be killing you. You go to the gym for 2 hours, you're killing 2 hours of doom scrolling that you might have done. You cook this meal, you're doing two things. Actually, you're fueling your body correctly because you're cooking the right things that your body needs, and two, you're not spending money on fast food that's also going to hinder your health. you know but during this time you may get isolation, and that scares everybody. A lot of people want to be isolated, a lot of people want human connection all the time, but during this time this isolation is going to expose what you're fearful about. Are you scared of going to the gym because you feel like your body's not ready? You feel like you're gonna get judged? Do you feel like you're not gonna progress well? It's a lot of fear. Are you scared to cook because you might burn down the kitchen? You never know, but this fear is gonna create useful momentum. Sometimes you gotta write down what you're scared about. You're scared to go to the gym because I'm not gonna lift 225 off the rip, but I could go to the gym every day, and maybe in a few months I'm gonna be able to lift 225, and you could use that as momentum. Now your road to 225 is pushing you to go to the gym every day. Getting the clarity of what you want to get to is more dangerous than confusion, because you're confused on you don't want to go to the gym, but you're clear on what you want to do, so it allows you to do that. you know Confusion clouds your discernment. Confusion limits what you know, and clarity comes from God. It does. Simple. The guy downstairs, he uses confusion. He uses confusion to delay what God wants for you. You know what I mean? Clarity comes from God. One prime example, and I'm gonna just say the sentence and keep it moving because it's nothing else to truly be said. Adam and Eve went through confusion and a lack of clarity. Simple as that. If you know the entire story of Adam and Eve, you know they were confused. They were not clear on what was to be done, and they made one of the worst decisions in human history. But obviously that led to Jesus. So what? We'll dive into that another time. But you understand that you have to understand clarity is going to be more dangerous than confusion. Clarity is going to challenge you. It will. But confusion is going to keep you where you are. Confusion is gonna limit what you do. You'll never be clear. A lot of people that took chances, started businesses or, you know, created that movie or created that game, they weren't clear on their end goal. They didn't know this would be the best game in the world. When Fortnite came out, probably no, they didn't expect this to be what it is now. They probably didn't think in, what is it, almost 10 years that they'll have Simpsons regular show, all these things in the game. They didn't know that, but guess what? They did it anyway because they were clear what they wanted to do. They just didn't let the confusion lack. They didn't let the worry of what's to come after stop them from starting it. You know what I mean? Even when everybody was playing the game, we didn't know that this is what the game would be, an enigma several years later. But since they started, they got to this point. And you never know where you could be if you start when you get to this point. You know what I mean? Go listen to J. Cole, Everybody Dies. You'll clearly get a message. Clearly get a message from him. I'm not going to say what part, but if you go listen, you'll understand. And for the best part of the segment, my new favorite part. The paradoxical moment where, these are just my beliefs. Not the truth, but they could be. Motivation should not be pushed because it's a lie. Motivation is a flawed idea in my eyes. Motivation is cool and all. You could be motivated to go win this game, motivated to go to the gym, motivated to play the game, motivated to do so many things. But motivation is just a dopamine booster. Motivation does nothing for you truly but gets you to do something. You're motivated to go to the gym, but why? When that motivation is gone and it's a terrible day outside, you feel weak or whatever the case may be, and you're not motivated to go do anything and you're running on motivation, you're not going to get anything done. Motivation is just an emotional state. And your habits and your discipline will forever outlast, emotional states, especially motivation. You could have all the motivation in the world, but if you don't have the discipline to actually take action or go do it, you won't get nowhere. You have to act when motivation lacks. When motivation is gone, you still have to make the movements. When motivation is gone, you still have to get up and put yourself in the car when it's, snowing, pouring down, raining, thundering, and you got to go to the gym today. Motivation won't take you to the gym. Motivation will just give you the idea. And motivation easily disappears. It does. You could go to sleep motivated, wake up unmotivated. That's how fast it goes. So instead of motivation, you need discipline. Discipline will take you over the top. Discipline will take you where you need to go. Motivation comes here and goes. Motivation is cool. Something happens through the day and you're, oh yeah, I'm going to go lift those 60s, those 70s. You can be motivated to do that, but you can't run off strictly motivation. That will get your car nowhere. Motivation wants you to feel ready before movement. And you'll never, for some of the best things, if you wait for when you're ready, you may miss your chance. And there's just a deep connection between feeling ready and having to make the hard decision. You have to make the hard decision of saying, I'm not ready yet, but you still have to do it. You may want to be a artist. You're just, I don't know what to paint. That's why abstract painting is a thing. Paint what you feel, and somebody may love that painting. If you want to be a content creator, you may not feel ready because you're nervous to post. Just post. You play the game, or if you're an athlete and I don't know if I'm ready to go to high school tryouts. Go to tryouts. You could be one of the best players there. Some of the hardest decisions you have to make is just knowing that you will never truly be ready for anything. Look at some of the biggest business owners in the world. A lot of them will tell you that they weren't ready when they did this, or they didn't know what the outcome would have been, but they still did it. And look at them now. Sometimes you just have to make the hard decision of just saying, I'm going to do this and move on. And that's going to take you where you need to be. So I strongly believe, if you're running off strictly motivation, that you should change that. That you should look elsewhere. You should look to build habits of deep discipline that will be there when motivation is gone. Challenge yourself. See, are you running over just strictly motivation. See the days where you didn't go to the gym, or you didn't post, or you didn't cook, where you running off motivation that day and you didn't have any habits, no discipline. Look internally and understand that, and then move forward. Have a good one.